Hi, and welcome to Parent Communication. Here we're going to talk about some tips and tricks that will help you to effectively communicate with families. When we talk about communicating with families, the format could come in a variety of ways. Maybe you want to go with traditional print, Word, Google Doc, anything where you can maybe add some color, but mainly get some text out and some information. Now, we have some great free programs as well now that can really add to some professionalism when we're sharing parent communication. Things like Canva or Pictochart might be good choices, free accounts that let you make some really polished communication with families. You might also want to try to go a little bit on the video side, thinking about Flipgrid or YouTube and sharing some things. It's a great way for you to create examples if you need parents to see how to maybe do some sort of math that you've been working on, explain some techniques you've been using in class. And of course, there's platforms like Seesaw where families could have an app right there in their hands. Now, even as I talk to you, I think of even more opportunities that you could have in sharing information. There are lots of platforms out there, so feel free to get creative. One big tip when you're talking about print and sharing with families is the dollar bill rule. That means that when people are reading any sort of flyer or long format of information, even digitally, they're probably going to pay the most attention to something about the size of a dollar bill right at the top. And so you want to catch people quickly. Your most important message should probably come right at the top and not take up a ton of space. You want to make sure that you're getting to the point because people's time is valuable. When we do this, we're showing parents that we do value their time. So think about that dollar bill rule. What do you want to dedicate to that top space in what you're sharing with parents? What do you want to make sure that they hear? The next tip is don't be afraid of white space. That means feel free to leave gaps of space in your newsletter, in your digital communication, whatever it is, make sure to leave some white space in between. We don't need a super text heavy piece of communication. It bogs people down. But what happens when we leave white space is that they can use their energy to focus in on each block of text we've provided. Their eyes know where to go on the page because it's like we've created a target with that white space of where to look. So don't be afraid to leave space in your communication. You're helping your readers to focus. Now, when we talk about two-way communication, we want to make sure we're sharing that essential information with parents, but we also want to show families we're listening. We're invested in their lives. And so this could be in the form of a Google form that's attached digitally, or if you're print-based, it could be something as simple as a dotted line where families knew to cut, respond, and return something. Now, this sort of feedback can be tied to what you're doing in class. If you're going to be doing a graphing activity, instead of just asking your students say what their favorite candy is, put that in your newsletter. Ask families to share what their favorite candies are. Then use all that information that you got from the newsletter, combine it with your class, and do your graphing activity. Your students will quickly catch on that you want those pieces back from the newsletter, that you want to hear from their families, and they will act as agents of change, and they will help make sure their families are reading those because they'll want their family's perspective shared as well. You can do things like ask about holiday traditions or ask about a favorite book they like to read together. Sometimes prompts like that are almost like a subliminal message that encourages families to get together and read. If they haven't been reading a lot together and they see that prompt, it might encourage them, let's get together, guys, and read a book and let's record what we read. Whatever it is that you ask of parents, though, make sure you're really using it to inform your lessons. People are savvy, and if it seems like you really aren't using it and it's a waste of their time, they'll stop engaging, and you never want that. We're partners with our students and their families, and we want to make sure everyone's successful and feels invested. Now, this last piece is a little tricky, but it's something to strive for. So we just talked about parent input. But what about student input? Maybe you want to have student reporters that share pieces of information with families. It's another way to get families invested in reading your newsletters if their own children are contributing to the content. Once again, this is something to strive for. Nothing that we really need to hit on right out of the bat, but it's a great picture of what we can focus on how to grow. We always want to be looking for how we can improve our practice, even if it's farther down the road. So, this just gives you an idea, something to ponder and think about as you continue to grow as an effective communicator. What are some other ways that you could keep pushing the envelope and including more stakeholders in what is happening in your classroom? When you do this, you're going to create those partnerships. You're going to have a community of learners that includes you, your students, and your families all learning from one another. It's exciting, right? We started with this piece that was just parent communication, writing a newsletter, sending it out. But when you start tweaking it, when you start thinking about what tools you're going to use to convey your message, what important information needs to come at the top for that dollar bill rule, or how you can engage students or their families in the work you're sending out. It really does enliven this whole thing that was just a newsletter into some great, valuable information for families and valuable information for you as a teacher. We're always wanting to gain better understandings of our students. And this is one way that we can continue to grow and change our practice based on what we learn about our students and their families. I hope this has helped you to consider some ways that you might want to be communicating with your families. I encourage you to try a variety of things and see what works best. Remember, every school's different, every family's different, and the way that you're going to connect, it's going to change from year to year, from family to family. So explore, see what works, see what clicks, but don't give up. Keep making contact, keep engaging those stakeholders.